Um, I've tried to put it all on one web app uh,
Hmm.
where um,
Yeah,
where I wrote down the essential progression of the teaching as I
yeah,
understand it.
yeah.
And it's work in progress because what I want to do in that app is actually what you had also said once, Rajiv. I'm actually going to start working on each chapter one by one,
Yeah.
write down the actual Sanskrit with the English translation of the chapter, and
Mhm.
then based on the commentary of Shankaracharya and based on the commentary of Swami Dayanand, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase in simple language, say mainly what is this chapter
Yeah.
talking about. And it's if you look at each chapter, it can be broken up into subsections,
Hmm.
into sections, and each section addresses a particular topic. Sometimes
Yeah.
they're repeated, so I'll kind of break my the commentary that I'm writing also into these kind of sections, so that then
Yeah.
so that will be a sort of something we can always refer back to if we ever want to actually see what exactly did Gita say. So there are 700 verses, 18 chapters. So I'll slowly do it over the course of the next few months. Things are much easier now with AI,
Yeah.
it's like you got a transcriber, you tell it what to write and it writes it, and makes it a lot
Right.
easier.
Right.
So these things can be done now.
Yeah, summarization and just having the big high points kind of always in front of you, right? I
Right,
mean, it's much easier to absorb all that.
right.
I mean, I read your article and I found um, it very, very beneficial because it just, you know, sort of quickly tells you the truth and then takes you very quickly through some of the big learning
Big learning,
points.
right? Exactly.
And I've found it very helpful. I think it's still a work in progress, I believe, from your side. So I'm sure there is,
Yeah, a
I'll
little
see
bit
if I
of
can send you some
editing.
input or something like that if necessary. But yeah, I mean, I could tell it is still work in progress, but nonetheless, very helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, if you find areas where, particular areas where you think you can suggest some changes, do that.
Sure,
Because
sure.
most of the work in progress is really around, I think, editing and
Yeah,
language.
yeah,
Because sometimes this is it is very evident it's written by AI, in some
yeah.
cases, it's like a very AI language.
Yeah, I forget, I think the entry into Gita, I felt like, one point I noted was it was very abrupt and probably a little bit more context could help in some
Okay.
areas. But no, big picture wise, I think it was a very, very well starting point. I mean, yeah, that's what AI does for you, and then
Right,
you sort of want to refine. Sometimes it misses things too,
right.
which you think as a qualified Vedantan, right?
Yeah,
That you want to make it stronger and come
right.
across. So that's,
No, I
but
mean, I had to do a lot of back and forth. This is not,
yeah,
it still
yeah,
takes a lot of time, but at least
yeah.
I had a scribe who could do this for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's in 25 sections, so that each section is sort of easy to read.
Mhm.
Uh, and so that's how it is right now. The other thing I wanted to say about it was that, what I tried to do was to just take a step back myself and see what have I, what is Vedanta as far as I am concerned, and how can we learn it? What is this path? Because if you see the Gita, you can use the Gita for many different things. People can use the Gita for understanding law of karma, or it can talk about, what are my duties, what should I do? So depending upon your stage in life, it'll talk to you. It's basically what question are you asking Gita? And Gita will respond accordingly. It's like AI, right? If your questions are, I don't know, I feel like I'm getting drawn into this world uh, and I want a little detachment and I'm getting anxious and I want some answers like that. I want to know what happens after death. How do I reduce attachment? Things like that. If that is the question you will take to Gita, then Gita will answer accordingly. So there are different verses which will say different things. In fact, there's a whole chapter in chapter 8 which talks about journey after death, right? So for a person who really wants to know what happens to our soul when we die, or who wants to know how was the world created, for that Gita has an answer. The world is created through elements and things like that. Or how can I meditate to God? Gita has an answer. What is bhakti? Gita has an answer. So Gita is great because in a very short, relatively short, 700 verses is not really short, but in a relatively short, compact form and easy language, it can answer a lot of questions of people of various levels of maturity in their spiritual quest. It can answer questions of a person who is completely a samsari and who wants a better way of living in samsara, a more dharmic way of living. Or it can answer questions of a person who says, I am done with all this. I'm not worried about all this law of karma sharma. I really want to know myself and I want to get moksha. That also Gita can answer. So when we talk about the Gita, we have to be careful to follow a thread, right? Otherwise, it will become like to do justice to the Gita will be a huge, and it will also go on various places. Some things you'll find interesting, some you won't, and some are meant for one person, another meant for others. So the way I approach this, and selfishly, because that is what was interesting to me, is to say, if I want to transform from a samsari to a jnani, I'm looking for personal transformation. That is the core message of the Gita. Gita is saying we are samsaris right now, and we should try to become jnanis. That is our journey. So if you're saying that is our journey, samsari to jnani, then that particular thread is there in the Gita, and that's what I focused on, and that's what I've always been focusing on anyway. Whenever we've been talking, you'll see if you listen to different people who describe the Gita. I mean, I've been listening to some other swamis also. Many of them they go into great depths talking about punarjanam. you know, like people ask questions. Like I still remember someone from IIM, one of my colleagues from IIM Ahmedabad. He was very interested, so he approached a guru called Gopal something, I forget his name,
Mm-hmm.
and he's from ISKCON. And one of his, he also kind of had conversations on the Gita with him, and he recorded it into video, on about 40 videos. And one of his videos was all about Punarjanam. And he said, people ask me, what is the evidence for Punarjanam? For life after death, and he kind of gave long explanations for it. He talked about research that has been done in this field by Westerners and Indians, and how people have found situations which cannot be explained other than by punarjanam. Like some people know something about some about a past life and things like that. So there is all that, and there are people who are interested in that, and that's there in the Gita because it describes that. Gita says very clearly that depending upon how you've led your life and what you've done in this life, your rebirth is going to be this or that or that. It describes the path and everything. So that is also interesting. But if I pull the thread of personal transformation from a samsari to a jnani, this is not important because I'm not talking about how can I have a better next life. I'm talking about how can I live this particular life as a liberated soul, as a happy man, right? That's the transformation which, when you say you're going to become a jnani, that's what it says. Because Gita itself says that. It introduces all these things and then it says that those are not the ultimate. Those are ultimately you can be happy right now without regard for anything else. So in my Gita sections, you will not find any reference to Punarjanam. You will not find any reference to the law of karma, not even to the law of dharma, right? Not even to duties except as a practice. So so that is the way I have found most meaning in the Gita. That is what gives me the meaning in the Gita, as opposed to what Gita tells me about what happens after death. Because I don't even believe the Gita on that. Honestly. I mean, I don't know what will happen after death. Till I can have some personal um, sort of conviction of my own, till it talks to me, till I understand it fully, it's hard for me to believe. And that's okay. So if you ask Swami Dayanand also, he will also say, it's up to you, believe it or not. Not important. So the point I'm saying is, if you look at Gita from that perspective, which is personal transformation, then what becomes important and what is the key is something called inquiry. You're basically making inquiries into your current life. And inquiry means Gita is telling you something or Vedanta is telling you something, and you are actually seeing it in actual life. You're seeing it in your life. You're not believing it because Gita says it, you're actually seeing it. That is called inquiry. You're not even studying it. Like we study that atoms consist of quarks. So we believe it in the sense we don't know. We've been told. If somebody asks me what does atom consist of, I'll say quarks. But I don't have conviction in it. I know tomorrow someone else will say something else. But if I can actually experience it, if I can believe it, I can see it myself, then I will have conviction. If I can actually see the quarks, I will have conviction, for example. So when you're talking about personal transformation, you're talking about things that you can actually see, that you can actually experience in a different way of experiencing, but you can actually experience. You can find them true in your life. That process of actually hearing something from the Gita and then seeing whether it is true in your life, and then seeing that, oh, yeah, actually, this is quite true in my life, is called inquiry. So if you're just hearing it and logically analyzing it, that is just study. Study. If you're hearing it, logically analyzing it, and seeing it in your life, that's inquiry. And the difference between inquiry and study is the difference between conviction and lack of conviction. That's what it is. So that is actually the premise of Advaita Vedanta at the end of the day. It says that everything we are telling you is to be inquired and to be found as true in your life. So the key is inquiry. And what do you inquire on? What you Gita will guide you through the process. It will tell you, okay, for example, and I'll tell you, take you through some examples right now. It will tell you what to inquire on, but then you inquire yourself and you see, oh yeah, that's true. But the problem is that we can't inquire effectively. And the reason that we can't inquire effectively is because inquiry requires a very objective mind. And again, I'll tell you through an example just now. If you don't have an objective mind, your inquiry goes haywire. You get diverted completely. So, first order of business is to get a mind which is objective. Which by objective we mean a mind which can divorce itself from the ego and the pull of the ego. That's the simplest way to talk about objective. Ego is where you house your conception of yourself, your desires, your fears, all of them are housed in the ego. And ego colors everything we see. And a mind which can identify the ego and compensate for it, or in other words, can account for it, is an objective mind. So it's not that you demolish the ego. No, not at all. That is not what objectivity means. Ego is an important thing we can't live without. Objectivity means the ability to see the ego clearly and to be able to account for it. That is objectivity. It's like, when you look at the stars through the microscope, and the microscope is on the ground or on a hill, you see the image of the stars and you will see shimmer because the light is passing through the atmosphere. So if you don't know that there's atmosphere, you'll think that that shimmer is an artifact of the star itself. But if you know that there is an atmosphere, you cannot get rid of the atmosphere unless you go out in space, but you can account for it. You can compensate for the shimmer and say, okay, let me take the shimmer out. And then what I'm seeing is the star. That's what most telescopes do. They find a way to compensate for the noise of the atmosphere and remove it. So it's the same thing about our objectivity. It's not that we are saying we get rid of the ego, it's that we see the ego very clearly. And then we can account for it. And we can say, okay, this conclusion I'm reaching is coming from my ego. Let me put it aside. You know, that's what objectivity means. And all the practices that we do, whether it is bhakti or it is karam yoga or it is meditation, all these practices, their basic end goal is to make us capable of two things. One, capable of accounting for the ego, being objective, right? Objective meaning we can be objective and we can now account for the ego. We can see clearly how my ego is coming in the way and I can account for it. And the second thing it does is it increases concentration, because inquiry also requires you to focus and think for an extended period of time on a particular thread. And that also requires a particular kind of capability. A mind which has that capability um, is better suited to inquiry. So these practices do these two things. In particular, Karam Yoga and Bhakti increase our objectivity. They make us more able to account for the ego. Meditation increases our concentration, our ability to focus on a particular thread for a long period of time. That is why typically meditation is advised, in the Gita also, it is advised after you've done a fair degree of Karam Yoga and Bhakti. Because otherwise you find very hard to do meditation. Then the meditation will more become like, okay, let my thoughts come and go, wander, or the early stages of meditation. Let me breathing exercises, to calm yourself down. That is also meditation. But this is the meditation we are talking about really as a discipline, is the third kind of meditation, which is the ability to focus on one particular thought for an extended period of time. So these practices basically work on our mind by making it more objective and by making it more able to concentrate and focus. So while this is happening, then our inquiries can be done better. But the answers to what Vedanta is saying, or the insight of what Vedanta is saying, the conviction comes through inquiry. Okay. So the other thing also which Gita says, which I found useful, is that your practice in life becomes easier if you have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, your mind wanders into multiple directions all the time. It's almost like meditation. Purpose is like meditation. Your mind will go here and it will go there. It's very hard to do your practice. But if you have a purpose, your mind becomes single pointed, and then your practices also becomes easier. So three things we've introduced: inquiry, which is the heart and soul of Vedantic practice; practice, which is how to strengthen your mind; and purpose, which is how to support your practice. So practice and purpose are supporting things in order for you to prepare yourself to do your inquiry. Of course, the ultimate purpose is I want to understand um, what reality is. That is all. That is what Vedanta is going to. But that's the ultimate purpose. That's not the purpose we're talking about when we say purpose. Here, the purpose means in your real life, if you're finding yourself wandering aimlessly, try to find a purpose. And then try to find a purpose which actually supports your inquiry, supports your practice. In other words, find a purpose which is actually meaningful to people around you, not just to you, but to others around you, so that you can actually, by following your purpose, you're doing service, which is part of the practice of bhakti, things like that. And by following your purpose, as you continue to do your purpose, you're also being a karam yogi, because your purpose is for other people. So it doesn't generate more desires in you, relatively speaking. So what I kind of the way I've been looking at this is to say there are three important pillars of in a person's journey from a samsari um, to a jnani. And the three pillars are inquiry, of course, which is actually the heart of the Vedantic study, and practice and purpose. So, purpose, practice, and inquiry. So, that's kind of my sort of distillation in order to simplify it for today, for today's world, and people, the way that we think today, and not get drawn into a whole lot of extraneous stuff which comes with the territory of Vedanta and Gita and all of that. I mean, we can, if you do want to get drawn, then the stuff that I will write in chapters 1 through 18, which is coming, will be accurate reflection of what's in the Gita. That will give you all that too. But that's, whatever you guys want to do, anybody wants to do. So do you follow this so far? Like what I've been saying, does it make sense to you, Rajiv?
Yes, it does. I think this is just a very nice way of putting uh, how to, sort of the journey you need to go through
Yeah.
to become a Gyani, right? I mean, these are pillars
Yes.
of
These are
what you
pillars.
need, actually.
Yeah.
Um, I was just thinking, the words are very, very powerful, right? That you have used. It'd be good to kind of take a couple of examples of real life examples of what people ended up,
Yes.
how did they, you know, practice these elements um, and came out, more knowledgeable or, more, Gyani, right? That's the end goal. Maybe even your own journey. I don't know, people like me right now who are transitioning from a lot of focus around work to having time to do this kind of
Yes.
critical
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
right? Probably some examples can help in trying to help find more focus,
Okay.
because we're so used to in the job life, it's
Mm.
like much easier to find
Yeah. 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 No. No.
focus.
No. No. Of course. Of course.
So I could use some help, there in terms of, okay, how do I leverage the time and energy I have, and uh, create some interesting changes in myself, or start thinking in a particular direction. Anyway, those are my first
No,
thoughts,
no,
but
they're good. I mean, it's
yeah.
not like if you look at anybody, whether any Swami, anybody who is literally who's a teacher and who's a genuine teacher, meaning who's followed the path himself or herself and is teaching, you'll find this is what they do. There is no, there's nothing, there's no progress without practice.
Yeah.
You have to practice. You have to control your tendencies. You have to grow your mind, your capability. They all say Karam Yoga, Bhakti. You do see these are happening all the time, and all of them have a purpose too. I tell you, like Swami Dayanand, he had a very clear purpose. He wanted to establish Vedantic institutions around the world which could teach what he, um, in a way that made sense to him, and which actually turns out made sense to me. So I benefited from that purpose. So he created all these organizations. I mean, in a smaller way, Carol, my guru, had a purpose too because she created a small group. She set up her own sort of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, she calls it, Arsha Vidya Kulam, which is a smaller subset, but totally under the auspices of the larger umbrella that Swami Dayanand had put together. And then, other people have other purposes, which have usually these purposes have something to do with helping others. Because then it's easier to do your practice. If your purpose is to just make money for yourself, then it doesn't support your practice. It becomes like a
Self-serving.
self-serving, and then your practice is more around being open to others and all of that. So so you need to have a purpose, which is, so far our life has had purpose, but that purpose has been about ourselves, right? I had a purpose which made me come to America, which everything, and I'm glad, to some extent I met my purpose. But that's been a very narrow purpose in
Mhm.
the broad scheme of things. I think it's a very great purpose, but everybody has their own purpose. They all think it's a great purpose. So if I have to now start thinking purpose, I have to, from a practice, to help with the practice, I have to think of a purpose which is a little bit broader than just my interest and my family's interest. Maybe from my to my family's is the first step. From my families to my community is the next step. Whatever works for you, for each of us. But if we develop a purpose that suits our temperament and our ambition and our level of ability to put effort, our level of ability, then that'll help with the practice. So all of these people are doing all of these things. They are doing, I mean, I didn't think of purpose, practice, and inquiry out of the blue, right?
Mhm.
I looked at all that and said, okay, to me, it makes it easy to understand and to explain when I break it up into these three things,
Yeah.
right? But they're all been doing inquiry all the time. They have a purpose. They've been practicing all the time. But it's all one, like
Mhm.
a mesh, right?
No, I think the thing that's very informative is the framework, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it is a framework, and if you think of all the three pieces that you just mentioned, I think it opens up, your mind to, I mean, the
yeah. You
separation
can
of
you can
mind from the ego itself is not a easy
easy
task,
task.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because all queries have to go through the mind, and then you
yeah.
say, okay, am I talking to my mind, and the ego is influencing my mind. I think that's a very
Yeah,
vicious kind of cycle there,
absolutely.
which is very hard to break out of. But the framework, I think I sort of understand the framework. I think just listening to you on tape would be helpful, and me taking some notes. But yeah,
Okay.
it's a powerful thing.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Sanjay
Hmm.
Mukta?
It's a very simple framework you have given. but I think to follow it and to inculcate it and to follow the framework on a daily basis, that is going to be a very big challenge.
Hmm.
We really have to put our heart and soul into it and develop all those features
Yeah,
on a 24/7 basis.
correct.
We have to live with it, you know,
Yeah,
live with it. What I was thinking कि जब मेरा एंट्रेंस एग्जाम था, मैं कैसे पढ़ाई करता था, कितना फोकस करता था,
correct.
ये न्यूमेरिकल, ये सवाल, ये
Right.
तो that should be the focus
Yeah,
if you really want to grow into it and really imbibe that thing. मतलब
absolutely.
जागते उठते, all these things, pillars, there should always be these 3 points in front of you.
Yes.
Then only I think you can really make progress and make these pillars really strong.
Real for you. No, no, I
Yeah.
100% agree. And Gita says that very clearly.
Yeah.
Gita, in the beginning of chapter 2, it defines the purpose. It says, Eka Buddhi, it calls it.
Ah,
And it says, um, it has to be, it can't be the only thing in your life, but it has to be the most important thing in your life. It should not be prioritized below other things if you really want it to be successful. You
yeah.
can't say, okay, मैं बच्चों को भी देख रही हूँ, फिर देख रहा हूँ, फिर मैं अपने ये भी देख रहा हूँ, फिर मेरे को थोड़ा पैसे भी बनाने हैं, फिर ये भी करना है. Then I'll spend some time doing this.
Then I will send.
Yeah.
But
Then
they
what
should be
happens
on
is
the
it
top of
it
your
always gets
priority.
deprioritized.
Ah,
So you have to do everything, but it has to be high enough in priority so that this is not compromised. जैसे I see Kavita, she is a yoga geek. वो कुछ भी हो जाए, she will organize her whole day in a
mm.
way that उसका 1 घंटा योगा
Yoga,
करनी ही
yoga.
करनी है. वो तो करनी है, बाकी
वो
चीजें
करना
can be organized around. So she's doing everything, but she
है.
manages to organize it so that her 1 hour of yoga is protected.
Mhm.
So that kind of a thing. This is not a 1 hour thing, but it's just that this has to be important in your life. So let me, Mukta, you have any other comment?
No, I mean, it's okay.
No, no, go ahead.
Nothing specific. Only thing is what Sanjay said is, I mean, very true, but very tough.
No, but it happens
Because
automatically. It happens
yeah,
automatically.
yeah, maybe it happens slowly and we don't see it. It happens. It does happen. I agree with that.
Yeah.
We have to work on it. But that thing about, I mean, the ego जो है उसको खत्म करना, वो सबसे टफ काम है ना. वो
उसको
कहीं ना
देखना,
कहीं
उसको खत्म नहीं करना, उसको अंडरस्टैंड करना.
या
खत्म नहीं कर सकते,
हाँ,
खत्म करना इज
खत्म नहीं हो,
इम्पॉसिबल.
खत्म तो हो ही नहीं सकती.
राइट.
यस, वही वही खत्म करना तो बिल्कुल मुश्किल है. हाँ, देख सकते हैं, बट वो भी, इवन दो वी नो दैट दिस शुड बी लाइक दिस, ये सारा कुछ करके भी लाइफ में अपने ऊपर, लाइक, स्टिल व्हेन यू गेट एंग्री, व्हेन यू गेट अनॉयड, उस टाइम पहले तो खैर हम सोचते भी नेवर थॉट अबाउट इट, बट अब डिफरेंस ये है कि व्हेन यू गेट अनॉयड और व्हेन यू गेट एंग्री फॉर वट एवर रीजन, इवन ऑन सम स्मॉल सिली थिंग्स ऑल्सो which have no meaning, even then sometimes you do get annoyed. उसके बाद अब after all this, at least you think, यार, why did I get annoyed? What was the need for it? Was there any need to get annoyed? Why was I angry? Why couldn't I control myself? That's all. अभी तो
But that is
वहीं
all that
तक
is
है.
needed, honestly, because it's not कि you will come to a situation where you'll never get annoyed. ऐसा नहीं होने वाला. Even the most, ponche हुए gurus and swamis, they also, if you irritate them enough, they will get annoyed. Like, they are human. It's a human thing to get annoyed. But to
Yeah,
be able to not act on it, to be able to recognize it and not act on it, that is that is the purpose, so to say, of practice.
actually, I was just wondering. I mean, recently with certain things, when I got angry or when I on whatever things, or it made me think, why couldn't I control my anger? But then I thought, the thought that came, not thought, the thought came to my mind, ki what we study, we listen, we understand. not just listen, understand also from Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta. But then that transactional world, how much, what is right and what is wrong? Like, how much is, where does this line come? I don't know whether you're getting what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
We listen, all this is paramarthik to some extent. I mean,
Vyavaharik.
whatever, vyavharik.
Yeah.
And in the transactional world, sometimes you do have to get angry.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
it's okay.
it will not work. Certain
Yeah,
things may not
you have to
work
get
if you
angry at
don't get
children
angry.
sometimes. You have to convey a message.
Yeah.
You have to get angry at employees. That's totally fine. That's it. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. But you're aware. Your mind is not being misled, not being led by your anger. You're not lost yourself in your anger, right? Which
Okay.
happens to
Yeah.
us, has happened to us so often in our life. As a younger person, I see so often I've lost my judgment because anger has consumed me. At that time, I can
Mm.
only think of what anger is telling me, right? So that should not happen. Or if it happens, it should happen for a briefer and briefer period of time. That is all.
Yeah.
So,
But even Mukta, अगर वो anger होने के बाद you have a question mark in your brain कि why did
Yeah.
I get angry? So
Yeah.
that's a positive thing, I
yeah,
think.
that's a progress.
It's a
Yeah.
positive
That's
step to correct yourself. And maybe next time or the next time, you won't get angry so easily. Your threshold will definitely rise if you keep questioning yourself and try to improve yourself.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. हम एकदम से तो बिल्कुल पिनाकल पे नहीं पहुंच जाएंगे ना समटाइम्स वी डू गेट एंग्री
वो
हाँ
तो that's
ठीक
true.
है ना
नहीं,
और
वही
हमारा
वही
पर्पस
मेरा
ये भी नहीं है,
क्वेश्चन.
हमारा पर्पस नहीं है to become like a robot who
हम्म
has no emotion. That is not our purpose. Our purpose is to open a line, a gap in our mind enough that we can do our inquiry properly, that we can actually see things properly. That's the purpose. See, this is the difference between
नहीं
this.
बट हाँ चलो आप बोलो
I was going to say, आपको याद होगा, आपने पढ़ा होगा इसके बारे में. There is a difference. Some people have siddhi. They want siddhis.
Mhm.
They want tapas. They want complete control on their mind because, according to our stories and everything, when you have that kind of tapas and control, you get gifts. You can do things in life which a normal person cannot do. But Vedanta is not after those siddhis because even a person, when he gets a siddhi, is still an individual. He has not understood himself. He has not. He doesn't see himself as consciousness. He still is. He still is a individual. Just happens to be an individual with extreme competence, with a mind which is extremely, you know, in his control. But our job, our aim is not. And as Sanjay, this is an important point which I want to discuss with you. Our, our our aim is not to have a mind which is in perfect control because that is just nothing but feeding our ego. We don't want to feed our ego by saying, hey, I have a perfectly controlled mind. We want to clear a path through our mind so that we can continue with our inquiry. Right? The end goal, the main thrust of all of this is inquiry. Because there is no end to getting your mind in control. There's no end. तुमको गुस्सा भी चल रहा है दिन में 10 बार, देन थोड़े दिन के बाद दिन में 9 बार, फिर दिन में 5 बार, फिर 5 दिन में 1 बार, फिर 1 साल में 1 बार, फिर 1 साल में 1 बार फॉर अ वेरी शॉर्ट पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, फिर 5 साल में 1 बार. देयर इज नो एंड. यू कैन स्पेंड योर होल लाइफ trying to improve yourself, but there is no end to it because anything can always be improved upon further. So the ultimate aim that Vedanta is telling us about or Gita is telling us about is not just to improve ourselves. It's to improve ourselves enough so that we can understand ourselves, so that we can do our inquiry properly. There's a difference. And with this thinking, it'll remove some pressure also from you. You don't have to be perfect. Because as an individual, you cannot be perfect. As much as long as you think you're an individual, you will always find some imperfection. But the moment you understand you're Brahman, you're perfect. You cannot be imperfect, regardless of uh, what your external mind and body and everything is. As Brahman, we are perfect. So that's the that's the little nuance that we have to understand when we think about inquiry, practice, and purpose. Practice and purpose are tools in order to do inquiry. Sanjay, this may be a little different from where you were thinking.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
But do you
yeah,
agree?
yeah.
Anyway, think about it. I mean,
It has to be thought over
it has to be
again.
thought over, and there is no one answer, good answer. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है.
हाँ.
You form your own answer. I'm just giving you what Vedanta is saying with some logic behind it. But you decide what is right for you. You're on a path and you go for it. Now think about it. Because for you then, the way that I think you would look at it then, you'll say practice is the most important thing. Inquiry and purpose support the practice. In other words, the reason why you're trying to do inquiry or understand is so that you can help with your practice. If you know that I am the mind, I'm not the mind, I am Atma, and this body is not permanent, then it will help me with my practice to become a better human being. Right? So Vedanta inverts that. It says practice is there to help you with the inquiry, not the other way around. ये मेरी सुनील से भी एक बार ऐसे बात हुई थी, long back. Because yoga tends to talk about it slightly that way. It says practice is the most important thing. And only through perfect practice, after you have practiced so much that you are like you're one with in your mind with consciousness, like a jyoti, one, then you will gain the oneness with God. Then that oneness will appear before you. That is the yoga way. And a lot of Indian traditions are following the yoga way. They say practice is the end goal, more and deeper practice. But Vedanta is distinctly different from that. Because Vedanta says you practice for the purpose of knowledge. And knowledge, not knowledge by knowledge, doesn't mean gyan. It doesn't mean bookish knowledge. It means inquiry. It means the knowledge of having seen something um, in your life. Inquiry versus knowledge. But कहीं भी पहुंच जाए यार, I mean, it's okay. The path is long. We don't have to fight over the end destination. Sure, Rajiv, what do you say?
I was going to give you guys a personal experience. I don't know
Please.
how it fits in.
Uh,
So, for the longest time, I think for many, many years, I had a big challenge when I felt like somebody was criticizing me, and I would immediately step in and get into this defensive mode and start to disagree and
argue.
dissect and argue and this, that, and the other, right?
Mm.
I think it's taken me so part of it was, trying to sort of break down who I really am, and where is all this defensiveness and anger and coming from, right? I have to tell you that it just was so hard to kind of separate myself from the anger in my mind. It was all one blob, right? And it just took me forever and ever to get to a point where now I think after 5 years of practice, if somebody, I've sort of learned to manage my thinking around um, not being defensive and recognizing what is going on in the moment and being able to take action about it. And the results have just been amazing. I mean, if you can recognize that you're getting angry, but you don't have to kind of get into a defensive mode that no, 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 this, that, this, that, this, that, and that just leads to a completely dead end, right? So it's been very hard, to really um, go through this inquiry about why do I get so defensive, and is this my ego? It's suddenly rushing in and trying to convince me that no, I'm better than you in this argument, or I know I wasn't like this, or deny it, or being in denial that I didn't get angry, which of course makes things even worse, right? Right. So some of the things I've learned is not to just say anything in the heat of the moment, and sometimes even step out and say, honey, I need a break here, or give me 5 minutes so that I can you know um, be in a better mental frame of mind to even have a further discussion. That's just a personal experience.
But that is what actually it means, You're not saying that I want to abolish my anger.
Yeah.
What you're saying is when the anger comes, I want to be able to identify it. And you can only identify it if you know it's separate from you. If you don't know it's separate from you, you can't identify it. Then you are it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to be able to identify the anger and be able to account for it. How you account for it could be, oh, I can see it's happening. I know that I don't have the capability right now to talk around it. Let me take a break. So you accounted for the anger. Or you could see it happening and you could talk to others and say, hey, you know what, I'm getting angry. This is happening to me. Let's stop. Whatever, whichever way you account for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's up to you. But you will have accounted for it. What you've not done is you haven't ignored the anger, meaning you haven't said, I'm not angry, because that's what happens. When you're defensive, you'll say, no, I'm not angry. People will say you're angry, you're defensive. You'll say, no, I'm not defensive. Because you can't identify your defensiveness. You think you're not being defensive. You think you're just normal. Literally. You don't even think you're angry. You're just you. You can't make a separation between the two. So then you're reacting out of the anger and out of the defensiveness. You have not accounted for it. And your what you perceive is going to be colored. You'll say someone is giving you some constructive criticism, you will see it as a attack, personal attack. It's not that you choose to see it as a personal attack. You will see it as a personal attack. You will genuinely believe that that guy is attacking me.
Yeah.
It's not, you're being very honest. You genuinely believe it. But you're seeing it through a mind which has not accounted for its ego.
Yeah.
So you will be
Exactly.
distorted. So you cannot do inquiry in that state.
Yeah.
But if you've accounted for it, you know it is there, then you will say, okay, I'm seeing the reaction in me, which is saying he's making a personal attack, but I also know that I'm upset. So possibly that man may not be making a personal attack. Maybe he's trying to give me good feedback. I'm not in the position to figure this out right now. Let me take a break. That's what you're doing. You've accounted for it. So you've said about anger, because anger is how your ego manifests itself at that moment.
Mhm.
But the ego can manifest itself in multiple ways depending upon what circumstance you're in and what your natural circumstances. For some people, ego can manifest as attachment. Like a mother with her children. It's a very common example. When someone criticizing a mother's children, you can see she'll like go mad. Uh, It's not it's not anger. It's it's attachment. There's so much attachment to a child that you cannot possibly see anything objectively about the child. Everything is seen from rose-colored glasses, and everything about your child seems like, oh my goodness, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
That is also a lack of objectivity. Fear is another reason. Fear, when you are afraid, in a sense of fear, you will see things differently. You'll see you'll see a pencil as a spear, something like that. You'll see when you're scared, you'll see a little stick as a weapon. you know like that's what happens with police officers. Literally, when they are in this situation where they're also
Mm.
afraid, they're humans. Somebody doesn't have a gun, they put their hand in their pocket, they literally think that I see a gun, and they shoot him. it's not that they it's not that they actually didn't see a gun and they used it as an excuse to shoot him. They literally saw a gun, or they thought it is a gun, it can't be anything else, because fear has overtaken the mind, right? So that what Gita is saying is, you just have to develop the ability to see these things so that you can work out of objectivity. Now I'll give you a particular actual example that I want to give you for why this is important. So, one of the first inquiries that we have to do as Vedantin is to understand how samsara is affecting us, how we are samsaris. We have to be able to see in ourselves all the lakshanas of samsara. Because a very a person who's really basics, who doesn't have any idea about all this, they actually think I'm not a samsari. Sir, the world is a samsari. I'm not a samsari. I'm fine. I am not given to attachments and to all this. I'm fine. But and therefore, because I'm fine, therefore all my reactions are justified. When I get angry at my husband or my wife, it is totally justified. That person made the wrong move, did the mistake. I have done so much for that person. I have made so much effort and sacrifice. That person has not done his or her share. This is a this is a actual feeling in the mind. If you ask a person, if you ask me, let's say I'm upset with my wife, I will literally, I'm not being dishonest. This is exactly how I see it. Because I see everything I've done, but I don't see the reaction that I expected. I have an expectation, right? And that expectation is not met. And in my view, that's a very fair expectation. That's absolutely the right expectation, because I am giving that same thing to him. So why isn't he giving the same thing back to me? So a person who's a samsari, who has not started on this journey, is very likely to not see, if to him I tell, or her I say, you're acting out of samsar. Your anger at that person is because of your attitude of samsar. It's not because of anything else. That person will say, what the hell are you talking about? You cannot equate me with that person. That guy is useless. I have done so much. So, the first inquiry that we have to make, the very first inquiry, is to see samsara in ourselves. And not because the book says it or Gita says it, but to actually see it. To actually see how my ego, my predilections, my preferences are coloring my perceptions. You have to see it. How my fear is coloring my perception, how my attachments are coloring my perception, how my anger desires are coloring my perception, how my desires are causing my anger. At the end of this inquiry, you have to be completely sure that nothing about the other person or the other place or the other thing is the root cause of your dissatisfaction. You have to be completely clear that the root cause of your dissatisfaction is your samsara. That is inquiry number one. It's a long inquiry. If we can do this inquiry properly and come to this full understanding based on actual sight, on actually seeing this in our life, that's a huge step. But without this step, the future steps of Vedanta will not do anything for you. Because you will, every time Vedanta will tell you your pure consciousness, you will not be able to see it because you will still see unjustness in the world around you. You'll see how the world has been unjust to you and how, life has been cruel to you. So, in, I mean, I know I've said a lot, but this is before you can make an inquiry which says, I am Brahman, that I am truly Brahman. You have no chance of that inquiry other than just a bookish understanding till you have done the inquiry and figured out you are caught in samsara and that the root cause of your issue is samsara. You have to get that like 100% clear in your head, 100%. From there to the step of I am Brahman is a very small step, right? So, right now for us, this is the inquiry we have to do. We can keep everything else in the back of our mind, but the inquiry is this. And when you do this inquiry, then the practice supports the inquiry. Because your practice is saying, I want to give the other person a chance. I don't want to get angry at the other person. I want to be grateful to the other person. I want to be grateful to God. All this bhakti inquiry, all these practices are supporting your inquiry. Because even without understanding all that, you're still behaving in a way as if you understand. You're behaving in a way by giving respect to the other person, even though you think that other person is at fault. And you're behaving in a way by being grateful to God, even though you in your mind somewhere believe, oh, God has been unkind to me. Because look at what it has given me. मेरे को तो ये दे दिया और मेरे दोस्त को इतना कुछ दे दिया, right? That there is in the back of your mind. So your practice is basically helping you, you're taking action even if you're not fully convinced, but just that act of taking that action is breaking the normal feedback loop which is happening in you, the normal vicious loop which is happening in you, and therefore it's supporting your inquiry, and your inquiry with every little progress is supporting your practice. And if you have a purpose, and the purpose says, I am not this purpose, I'm no longer interested only in just making money or making more for myself. I want to do something for others. And you have a clear reason for why that's a purpose. For your own benefit, that's your purpose. That's true. But and that purpose will support your inquiry and your practice. So the three legs are supporting each other, but they're all in the same level, which is I want to fully understand how samsara is affecting me. Right? That's the first inquiry. So that's how this process works. And it's a very meaningful inquiry because to say that my inquiry is I want to know who I am and I'm consciousness and all that, you can do that inquiry, but at the level of your day-to-day life, you're still very much engrossed in samsara. So it's a sort of you become like two. One part of you is doing that inquiry over there, and the other part of you is reacting in the samsara, and that is not helpful. So focus your full attention on identifying samsar and identifying how you are a samsari and how samsar, which is your attitude, nothing at samsara is nothing but your attitude. How that attitude is the single most or the only responsible factor for your pain. Not easy, not easy at all. Especially, if you have, really like people have such kind of misfortune in their life, and you're telling them, don't blame the misfortune. People lose children, they lose legs, they lose all kinds of shit happens to them. And then you're saying, no, in spite of that, it is your reaction which is causing you grief. It is samsara which is causing you grief. It's not an easy inquiry, but it's at the heart of Vedanta. That's why I'm saying this whole chapter starts with samsara. And inquiry means not just knowing about samsara, but to actually see the samsara in yourself. That is the inquiry. That is what it means. Mukta, make
Yeah,
sense? Huh?
yeah, definitely. Very deep though. I mean, I'll have to listen to it again once more
Yeah.
to get. Uh, it's really good. I mean, what you said is really true, and we need to understand it first, and then
In ourselves.
think over it.
Yes. In ourselves. We have to see it in
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
The real is to see it. It's not
yeah.
ऐसा क्यों है, ऐसा होना चाहिए. नहीं,
No,
है
no,
क्या?
no, no,
What
no.
is actually
What I
there?
meant, think over
Yeah.
it
No, I
is the
understand.
same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
to
To see it.
see it.
There's nothing like seeing is believing, right? So it's not, you don't have to see it with your eyes, but you have to see it with your mind.
Actually, I have really come to understand. Understand means really uh, get it that most of our problems or our reactions or responses are based on whatever we expect from the world, from others. It is our expectations
Yeah,
that give all the reactions.
absolutely.
All our reactions. This is what I have really, I mean, got it.
Yeah,
It is
good.
whatever I am expecting, it is my thing only. It is not to do with somebody else. It is
Yeah,
my problem, my
yeah.
expectations
My expectations.
from the person, from the world, from
Yeah, whatever.
somebody,
From God.
whatever.
Yeah. Or from God even.
वहां तक नहीं पहुंची मैं
नहीं
गॉड
नहीं
तक
I'm
नहीं
just saying
पहुंची
कि
बट
कहीं
इट वाज जस्ट इन द वर्ल्ड
से
but yes, I have understood one thing. It is my expectations which give the response or reactions that I give, the
So no,
anger
no,
or
I'll say
whatever.
one more thing, Mukta, one more thing, okay? Because I think that is really important.
Hmm.
It is right to say that it's my expectations which are causing my problem. But it is wrong to say I should not have expectations. Okay, they're two different things. Because if
Okay,
you say I
yeah.
should not have expectations, it will lead to guilt and self-loathing. It will
Hmm.
lead to problems with yourself. You will be dissatisfied with yourself. And the purpose of this inquiry or practice is not to make you dissatisfied with yourself. It needs to make you happy with yourself at every step. You have to be, with every step you take, you have to be happier and happier with yourself.
तुम तो
So,
थेरेपिस्ट ही बन गए हो
no, 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 because what does it mean? See, to have expectations is very human. To say I have expectation and to be able to see how that expectation is affecting you and to be able to account for that expectation is the goal, right? हाँ? आप कोई देवी तो नहीं हो कि जिसकी एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं होगी.
हाँ
सारी दुनिया की एक्सपेक्टेशन
वो तो
है ना?
सबसे पहली बात मैंने बोली कि इट इज
Yeah.
वेरी टफ वॉट एवर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इट इज easier टू टॉक अबाउट दैन टू put it in life practically.
नहीं, because we think
बहुत
we
टफ है.
think that we are something special. हमारा मन जो है वो ज्यादा प्योर है, उसमें एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं है, उसमें ईगो नहीं
नहीं
है.
ऐसा नहीं मैंने कहा कि
ऐसा नहीं,
नहीं है
I'm just saying we
प्रॉब्लम्स
all
उसकी
tend
वजह
to feel
से
like that. I'm not pointing out to you specifically.
या
I'm
या
saying this is our natural tendency or desire, and it causes more problems than anything else. because then another feeling is added on top of everything, and that's a feeling of self-loathing, a feeling of like dissatisfaction with yourself. That's another mighty thing which adds to your ego. So we don't want that. We
No, but Dheeraj, the bigger question is there's nothing wrong in having expectations.
Yeah,
And if the results are not according to your expectations or people are not behaving according to your expectations, what should be your mental status at that point? Should
very
you
good
be
point.
getting, yeah.
See,
So,
let's
so
say
that should be the key. That should
absolutely.
be the
No,
key.
no, no. But
Whether,
but remember. Let's say you are a CEO of a company.
yeah,
You want the company to do well.
yeah,
You
Meet the
have to have
expectation.
expectations from your employees that
yeah.
I want each of my employee to do well. And if they're not meeting your expectation, you have to jolly well go tell them. Right? So all that absolutely has to happen. But
Hmm.
while you're doing so, are you agitated and thinking the
Ah,
world has come to an end? And oh my God, I'm so such a failure. I couldn't make my employees meet my
That is
expectations.
the biggest question. If
That's the
things are
problem.
not going according to your expectations, then
Yes,
what is your state of mind?
exactly. Absolutely. I think
Yeah,
that's the point. Very good point.
that's the point. Yeah.
If you have accounted for your expectation, then your state of mind will be calm. If you've not accounted for the expectation and you believe you are the expectation, then your state of
Hmm.
mind is going to be very agitated.
Very agitated. Yeah. So
Yes,
I
right.
think
Very good.
we have to work towards that state of mind where expectations, if are not met, you are not totally disturbed or agitated or angry.
Right. You wouldn't be if you know that at the end of the day, this is your expectation. It doesn't mean it's right. It just happens to be your expectation. That's all. Right? It's we have enough dimag, we have enough experience and enough insight to be able to deal with these things. We deal with them
Mhm.
better when it's very clear to us, when we can see how our expectation is causing this chain reaction in our mind.
And talking about samsara, जो अभी हमने बातें करी about samsara, I think everybody has his own samsara, everybody has
Absolutely.
his own lens,
Yes.
and no two viewpoints will be,
The
they
same.
might match, they might not match.
They
And
might match for
so,
one thing at a one particular time. That's all.
yeah, so if you can take it that way, I think
Yeah,
your life becomes very easy,
much easier.
much easier.
Samsara, I was showing to somebody, I was saying, even Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who to me, like, I don't know anybody else who's more Poncha Hua than him, personally, even he has samsara. And he will be the first to tell you because he's a human being. He operates, when you operate as a human being in this world and say, I am doing this, you do this, ye karo, wo karo, you're operating as a human being. Human beings, when you operate as an individual, it is what does it mean? It means you have desires, you have ego, you have expectations, you have all the things. If you are a educated and a cultivated human being, these things are under much more control. You have what's the difference in an educated person and a non-educated person, or a civilized person and a non-civilized person, is the level of control. जो a rowdy barbarian has no control. वो उसका he will see an object of desire and he will just go for it without thinking anything else. A cultivated civilized person will see the object of desire, he'll say, no, no, let me think, what are the consequences of this? Maybe there are other people, I have to think about others too. That's the difference. But it doesn't mean that the cultivated person or disciplined person doesn't have samsara. Because if you don't have samsara, then you don't have individuality. Then you are not seeing yourself as an individual, you're just seeing yourself as Atma. कहने की बात है. Maybe there are times when you see yourself as Atma in a deep state of meditation, but you cannot afford to do that all the time in the world. You have to live in this world. So you can't get rid of samsara, but you can have enough knowledge to negate its its impact on your well-being. See, it's very simple. You, by your nature, you are a happy man. There is samsara which is operating in the mind, which is veiling this happiness. It's destroy. It's you can't get to this happiness. All you need to know is, oh, okay, I understand this samsara is there. I can account for it. I will not allow it. I will work with the samsara, that's fine. I will not allow it to impact my happiness, which is my natural status. That's all. You don't have to prepare happiness. You don't have to generate happiness. You don't have to do anything to be happy. Nothing. You just have to deal with samsara. That's all you have to do. And dealing with samsara means dealing with your own mind, with your own attitude or your own, that's what you have to do. I mean, I'm saying it in a very simple way. That's it, but that's but that's what it is. That's what Vedanta says. Let's put it this way.
But doesn't the problem begin when we are trying to superimpose our samsara, our color on other people's
Yeah,
samsara?
yeah, it's true.
There the problem begins.
I mean, even just having the samsara itself can create the problem, right? Even if you're not superimposing it on others, but you're having and believing
But
strongly in the
definitely
samsara.
everybody will have its own samsara.
Right, right. But if you think that if you don't see it and you think that the truth is only what your samsara is telling you is the truth and
No,
everything else
seeing
is
is
wrong.
fine. Your thought process is fine. But
Yeah.
I think the problem comes when other people's samsaras are not acceptable to you. And
Yeah,
you
that's
are
true.
trying to impose your own samsara on others.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, I
You see?
understand. Chalo,
Chalo, theek hai.
okay. So we
All
meet in
right.
2 weeks. Yep.
Are we good to meet in 15 days or is there a break?
I think so. I mean,
Mukta is available?
अभी
Mukta was
मुझे नहीं
traveling.
पता.
no, no, tu to,
No,
नहीं
I'm
पता.
I will go to
हाँ.
Mukta's daughter's house and we will take it from there together.
Yeah,
Of course.
you. Yes, you're most
Yes,
welcome.
I'm
Most
Yeah.
likely you'll be there.
most likely you'll be there.
Yeah,
We'll force Mukta to join us.
yeah. Actually, that would be 19th, no?
Today is the
No,
6th, right?
6th,
So 20th.
20th. Yeah. Abhi, let's see.
No problem.
I'll be there.
Fine.
I'm leaving on 12th night.
Yeah.
So,
हाँ तो
देखते हैं.
you have reached there.
That day might be celebration of my grandchild's birthday. His birthday
Birthday.
is on 15th.
Uh-huh. It's fine, Mukta.
So
Doesn't matter.
देखते हैं. I don't know क्या
I
program
mean, if
बनता है
it
अभी
works
उसका
for everybody, we
finalize
can
नहीं
move
हुआ.
it also. If you want, there are
You
only
नहीं
can
नहीं
move
four
it
नहीं
of us.
for a week.
We can
हाँ.
move
नहीं
it
नहीं
a week
most
out, a
likely
weekend. ऐसे कोई बात नहीं है.
most likely I'll be there to
हाँ,
join.
ठीक है.
90% chance is that. वो 10% अभी
क्योंकि ये तो
open है.
अर्ली मॉर्निंग मीटिंग होगी ना.
हाँ वही
हाँ
इसीलिए
वो
इसीलिए.
इसीलिए नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम आई थिंक.